What's going on, guys? Thanks for checking out another video. I have a little update for you. This video is just going to be a walk around update video. So a lot of things have happened over the last few days. Basically, long story short, let me just give you a rundown of everything that has happened. So obviously this isn't going to be a crazy exciting video, but there's a lot of stuff that has happened in the past few days. So today I actually pulled off the valve cover and painted it. So I still have to reinstall all that. But here's the exciting part. First things first, I got the fuel rail in, or I got the fuel pressure regulator in, and the return lines are all hooked up. The 255 Walbro pump is finally in the car and reinstalled, so now I can put the back seats back in. But the big thing that I was having trouble with was the cam angle sensor. So basically, the cam angle sensor for this car is different than the 97 harness. For the 97s, it's normally over here. And since this is a 95 engine, it's not over here, it's over here. So I had to take that cam angle sensor, which is over here now, and wire this. I put a loom on it and everything to clean it up. And I had to connect the wires down here to where the cam sensor originally came out. So cam angle sensor was over here. I had to rewire it over here. I'm probably gonna have to change up a couple things as far as injectors, firing order, stuff like that. I'll mess with that if I have to, but at least that's done now. We got a signal coming from the cam sensor over here, so that's great. All the fuel lines are hooked up. Everything's done there. Got the ground back on the intake manifold. What else? So the starter. This was a big deal. When I put the starter in the car, I could not get the car to crank. So I double checked everything. I have my ground going to a bare metal spot that I ground down. I grinded down on the motor mount to the subframe. So the ground goes from there to the block, where the block connects to the motor and the starter. So it's on the transmission bell housing bolt that connects to the starter. Then the starter has the positive wire and the signal wire all connected up, which I got to really get back in there to show you. So what was happening was I was turning the key, car wasn't turning on. So I made a little jumper. I jumped it from the positive terminal on the starter to the signal wire. And when I was jumping it, the car was cranking. So I didn't let it crank long, obviously. There's no oil or anything in it. As soon as it cranked, I pulled it off. So what I ended up having to do was the inside of the car. I'll show you real quick. I had to rip apart the entire dash again. Oh, I almost just fell. So here's what happened. I had to rip apart the entire dash again. So there's wires going everywhere, stuff all over the place. So yeah, basically right there was a relay for the starter. Right here's the starter relay. And on the original harness that was in this car, the one that came in this car, the 99, I don't know if you guys remember the video, but there was a jumper going on one of the connectors, a little red wire that went from one port to the other port. I'm currently looking for that, but I'm going to hardwire this. This is just temporary to make sure that this worked. So, long story short, the clutch pedal was depressed, and the clutch neutral safety switch, all that, or the clutch pedal safety switch is disengaged and everything. But the car was not starting to save its life. So I actually missed an ignition wire here. This isn't my connector, but I connected it right there, soldered and heat shrink. So I might actually get rid of this connector too. But anyways, I missed this wire when I connected the ignition. So that was a problem. But it still was not starting. So what I ended up having to do is this relay was bad. So I'm bypassing the relay. Because I don't want the clutch safety switch on anyways, because that's bad on your thrust bearing, and people say it can cause crank walk, which I don't. I mean it can probably help cause it, but I don't think it's a main cause. Anyways, I don't have an alarm system on the car, like a crazy aftermarket alarm system or the factory alarm system anymore or anything like that. So it does not matter. I don't need that relay. So I'm connecting the starter wire straight to the ignition so that as soon as you turn the ignition, the starter will fire. So now it works. Now the starter cranks, so I can put everything back together and button everything back up again. Okay, now that we're done with that, another thing that I discovered was my ISC sensor. Actually, let me go get it for you so you can see what it looks like if you don't know already. These little freaking things, man, are expensive. So what this does is it controls your idle. So when you first start the car and the car is cold, is mostly when this is useful. So I might have this backwards, but what I'm about to say might be backwards. Is what I'm saying. When this is plugged into the car, you basically have this little plug that will close everything up and cause your car to idle higher. So when you first start the car, it'll be idling nice and high to keep the car running. Then when the car warms up, as coolant passes through these lines into here and warms up the spring in here, I guess it loses tension and this will retract. When that retracts, it'll let more air escape and lower the idle once the car is warmed up. So with this broken, it can cause a lot of problems. It can fry your ECU. It can cause idle problems, everything else. Some people delete these and love it. Some people delete these and say it's a stupid idea. And some people have never even touched this connector in their life and just tell everybody that it's stupid to delete this. But I'm deleting this. Basically, all this helps with this cold starts. So I could be somewhat wrong, but I've removed this on another car before anyway, so and it was fine. So by removing that, this is busted. Mine is broken, so I cannot use it. So basically what the deal is a used one is about $100 if I can find one, and it's hard to trust a used one. A brand new one is give or take $500 for this connector, or for this freaking module here. $500. So I'm eliminating it with an STM block off plate. What I'll do is I'll pull off the throttle body. I'll pull off all of the full housing for that and put the block off plate on, and then I'll loop the coolant lines so that the coolant runs like normal without passing through there. So by doing that, the car is going to have some difficulties with cold starts. So when I start the car on a cold morning, or even on a hot summer day, it takes a second or two for the car to warm up. Rather than turning the key and just being able to let the car run, it'll most likely die without you putting your foot on the gas. So you start the car up, and you keep your foot on the gas, you rev it, you keep sort of revving it to keep it alive. After a few seconds, the car will be warm enough, you can take your foot off the gas. Fine, okay? That's the only big deal, is that, at first, it can take a little bit to get the car to warm up and idle properly. That's the only thing that it does. So with this not being a daily driver, I'm not super concerned about that. So once I get that done, let's talk about everything we need to finish the car. Once that is on, here's what we need to finish the car. I'm going to run by everything really quick so you know. I have to reinstall the plug wires, connect them to the spark plugs, reinstall the vacuum connections for the valve cover, and then what I can do from there is I need to install, I gotta get a coolant overflow tank yet, and then I'm gonna put the turbo back on, I'm gonna put the radiator back on, reinstall all the oil lines and coolant lines for the turbo, and then coolant lines for the radiator. I need to connect those radiator hoses to the firewall, to the heater core, and then we need to get we got to get the transfer case on both axles and the intermediate axle. Then we need to put the front brake calipers on, bleed all four brakes, put all four tires back, or put all four wheels and tires back on, put the intake on the turbo whenever I get that on, put the front subframe back on once all of that is connected underneath. Then we're still waiting on a clutch line to run from that to the slave cylinder, which there is no slave cylinder because I ordered a new one with a clutch line, so that'll come. And then once that gets here, obviously that'll complete that. I got to get cotter pins for the shifter cable, so the cotter pin's on. Then we can finally deal with all this intercooler piping, connect it to the front mount intercooler, figure out how it works with the turbo, connect the exhaust. And hopefully that is it. Fluids. Obviously, we got to put oil in this, gear oil in the transmission and transfer case, and then coolant in. And I'm also going to drain and refill the rear diff just to make sure everything is good to go on that side of the car. So, with all that said, I think that's going to put an end to to today's video. Like I said, I just want to give you guys and the O2 sensor. I'm still waiting on the O2 sensor, the correct one for this car. So I got to pull that O2 sensor out, put the new one in, and we should be good to roll, guys. So that's really it. Put the timing cover back on. I'm gonna touch up some of the paint, put the bumper back on, put the hood back on, and we're golden. Hopefully. Did I say hopefully? So I got my fingers crossed. Within the next 3 weeks, I think we can have this thing on the road. That gives me enough time to get the rest of the parts I'm waiting on. Gives me enough time to sort of put everything together, a couple hours here and there in the evening, on the weekends, that sort of thing. And this thing should be running very soon. So I'm so stoked. I'm so ready to have this thing run. I just want to drive it around and have fun with it. So I think that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I really appreciate you watching. And stay tuned to see this thing get finished. And first startup, first drive. Hopefully everything is good. The motor's good, everything like that. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I haven't compression tested it yet. Have a compression tester, but didn't do it yet. Should have did it out of the car, but I didn't. Maybe I just don't want to know. So, fingers crossed, everything's good. I'll catch you guys in the next video.